Approval of minutes.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's approved. Okay.
I'm sorry, I just make sure you Is this supposed to be me? Last year you complained because it was a calculator.
Next on the agenda,
I'm obsessed with it.
you have no face. I move we adopt this picture first.
I want this everywhere.
Next on the agenda, we'll get to that. Bill?
Okay, our office issued a report on a follow-up audit of the General Sessions Traffic School audit. The initial report was issued back in December of 2018. There were 10 audit recommendations. Jim Carson, one of our staff members, went out and conducted. We appreciate the work he did on this. He did his work. 8 of the 10 had been fully implemented. 2 were partially implemented. And the 2 that were partially implemented had to do with reconciling physical fee waivers that are issued by the courts to the CJIS system, just to make sure that they're legitimate waivers. And the way it works is you've got 2 different sections. You've got the civil courts and you've got the criminal courts. The majority of the action is going to be in the civil courts. That's where all your action is going to be. We did test work on that. They had implemented it. The criminal court, they only issued like 4 within a 2-year period. That had not been, they had not implemented the system for reconciliation. They did when we went out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep that partially implemented. We'll go back out in a year, look at it, and hopefully be able to close it and put it to bed. That's all I got.
So tell me, the waivers, number of waivers issued in criminal court are very few. That's a waiver for the fees?
Mm-hmm. Or it could be for rescheduling or for the fees or whatnot.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you forget to invite Seth?
Oh, but those 2 didn't get issued, so the 2 tentative ones did not get issued. So we can't go over those.
I forgot to read the instructions.
So next we have the annual audit plan. As you'll remember, our audit plan runs from February 1st until January 31st. It is what we work off throughout the year. It can be changed throughout the year, but what we do in February is we propose our audit plan that we've come up with by looking at things like a bunch of financial information, such as number of FTEs, how much they get in grants, how much revenue they get, how many expenses. We take that into consideration. We take into consideration if it's a department that is one of that serves a certain priority of the mayor's office, which would be public safety, education, things like that. And then we also take into consideration how long it's been since we've audited the individual department. So we put all that together and we come up with an audit plan we also ask for recommendations. That's actually a big one. We also ask for input from individuals on where we should audit, because we can look at all the financial information and a lot of times the same departments are going to come out as your higher risk areas, just because of budgeting, but then also because police is a large department or fire is a large department. So it's helpful for us to ask the council, department heads, individuals within the community for recommendations on things that they think may be good areas to audit. And so with that, we put together what is attachment A within here, which is our audit plan, our proposed audit plan. The stuff supporting it is all behind it. That's kind of just an idea of how we got there. But this is our audit plan. It starts with the stuff that we're wrapping up right now. We've got about the first 2 of these are kind of just starting, which is the COVID relief. We've almost wrapped up the Metro version of this, but we're also doing MNPS, which is a separate process. So that's why that one has a lot of hours still to go to it. We just started the police at early intervention. The rest of them are all kind of starting to wrap up. And so we're finishing those, and then you go into the actual new areas for us to audit for 2023. We haven't been to Department of Transportation since there's been new leadership, so we thought about doing sidewalks out there. Criminal court clerk, if you'll remember, circuit court clerk asked to be on the audit plan last year. They made the request for us to do that audit, so we moved criminal court clerk off the one last year, so we put them back on this year because we haven't been there in a very long time. The Metro Action Commission, emergency rental assistance, we had a few recommendations for us to go out there. MMPS payroll was another one where we got some suggestions to go out and look at. The sheriff's office we haven't been out to in a while, so we've tried to hone in on something that would be impactful out there, training of those individuals. EBID is one that is a small process. We've got, within our office, we've got newer auditors, and these are good smaller projects for them to go out, but also important processes. The same with the farmers market, district attorney, juvenile court, criminal justice planning. Those are all small areas that we haven't been to in a while. And the last one being public property administration, just due to some recommendations about going out there and looking at those. So that's where the new ones came from. We also have a couple of IT ones on there. Since we don't have the in-house IT audit staff that we used to have, we typically outsource those. We do have one person who, the Community Development and Regulation Implementation Project is this huge permitting implementation that's going on right now. We do have somebody within our office that goes to those meetings, and once it starts to be implemented, they would begin doing those audits. As well as the other ITS one, we would probably outsource to one of our consultants. So that's where we come up with this. The number of hours that we have within here, we developed that based on our availability within the office, our number of staff. You take into consideration leave time and holidays and just the amount of time that we do training. And we actually kind of cut down the hours this year because last year we kind of made the numbers with projecting that we would hire more people, and that hiring has not been as fast as we had hoped. So this year we're kind of cutting it back a little bit with the lower number of hours, but with the knowledge that, if you now go to the next page, we have this whole secondary list of audits that we've thought through. Some of these were recommendations, some of them are things that we talked about last year, but we just didn't put on the audit plan, and so we've kind of carried them forward. So that's kind of the secondary list that we can pull from. If we run out of things to do, we've got other audits that we can pull from. Then we take into consideration our investigations, special projects, unforeseen requests. So that is what we have come up with. Are there any questions or changes or comments?
Did you get any feedback from various groups? Or?
Well, we mostly got it from department heads. We had a few council members that sent back some ideas. They've been taken into this. I think General Sessions is one of them. Two or three of the ones on the actual audit plan, which would be the Metro Action Commission and MMPS payroll. Those were ideas from input from individuals. I'm trying to think. License plate readers were on the plan last year. We've moved it to the secondary list this year only because it hasn't been implemented yet. Knowing that when it does get implemented, we want to audit it. We just didn't want to take up the space on the original plan. We would come back and ask to move it once it's in place and we could actually audit it.
Okay. And I believe last year you had other potential audits that you moved. Mm-hmm. Well, the previous year that you moved, last year that you now, last year, some of those got moved up.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's a good roadmap, yeah.
For those that are like 3, 10, 16, 17, that are just departments but don't have scopes, what is that?
Usually what we do is we go out there and we try to learn, like we started looking at like criminal court clerk, we started looking at some of the initiatives that they have and some of the processes that they have in place, but we don't know enough about them beforehand, and so what we typically do is we send an auditor out there to just kind of ask questions and try to scope it out. We didn't want to put ourselves into a smaller scope now by going on and putting it in here, and so those are the kind that sometimes they lend themselves to. We start talking to people and you start to realize that there may be, sometimes you talk to the department head that says, I'm worried about this, and so it gives us that opportunity.
Okay.
question. Okay. I wasn't pointing at anything.
Well, you were, but that's okay.
It was like this. Did I submit something? I think I did.
You did. I was going to talk to you about it after this.
Okay, well, I can't even remember what I did.
It was on the list, or you submitted it.
No, whatever. I think I was making sure that there was more muffins at the meeting. That was probably one of them. Yes, I think it was. So 2 questions. One is, and I can't remember, we may have done this in the last couple of years, but the Barnes Fund for affordable housing, and I don't know when the last time we looked at it, but I think there's a question about how much money are we putting in there and how much stuff are we getting out of it? And is that something that we've done recently or have
We
looked
did
at
that last year.
Okay, so I need to go back and look at it.
Yes.
But that would, on something like that, how often should we be following up on that? Because we keep putting money in, and the question is, how, that is, I mean, it's not just typical running of government, making sure we have processes in place. That issue seems to continue to be at the forefront of what a lot of things the council is looking at. So how often should we be looking at that?
That's going to depend with Barnes, actually. We did an audit of that one about 4 years ago, and then we put it on the audit plan 2 years later because the findings in the first one were large enough that we worried that if they weren't implemented, that we wanted to go back out there. So that was part of the second audit, was following up. But then also it had moved then to planning, so we were trying to make sure that their processes after the move were in place.
Okay.
So it all depends on the audit, but we do look at things like that are at the forefront to make sure that if it is something that needs to be audited more often, we would go back out there.
Okay, I'll go back and take a look at the last audit and see if I need to bring something out. The other one was, maybe I put this in there, I don't know, but it's been bothering me for a while. So I'll just bring it up in here, and then you can tell me how stupid an idea it is. So the council passes on a regular basis, on a regular meeting, we'll pass 10, 15 resolutions that have contracts or getting federal money or state money coming in to do something with. And then we never hear about it ever again. I mean, we just get it and we pass it because that's what we think we're supposed to do. But we never know if it actually went and did what it was supposed to. So how do we figure that out? Because that's crossing over a bunch of different departments. And so I guess the question would be, could you go back, I mean, if we wanted to, could we go back a year to a council meeting in February of last year and go, this was the agenda. We passed this and this and this. We passed 10 things, gave money to different departments to do something with. And did they do it? Have they spent the money like they were supposed to?
And we could formulate an audit around that. The contract, or we'll start with the money that's allocated, like if it's federal or anything like that. What we typically rely on is that those grants are going to be audited by the grantor. So that's why we typically don't wade into that realm, as well as if Metro gives grants or receives grants, then we have the Office of Financial Accountability that also does grants audits. As far as contracts, you're right on the fact that we don't do a whole lot around that. We do some with contract monitoring when we look into things like that. But as far as the communication back, we could do an audit around that as far as trying to determine a good process so that there's some accountability from the council side of it, since the departments themselves probably know if the money was spent correctly. The federal government or the state government may come back to them, but they're not going to come back to council.
Right.
So we could do an audit around that, yes. And it's something we could
Don't we
add.
also get some assurance from the external auditors, particularly as it relates to the federal funding?
I'm not.
Because aren't they looking at some of that?
They are looking at some of it as far as they're going to look at it from the classification and like financial statement side of it. I don't know that they're actually auditing as much about the grants then.
But wouldn't the classification address some of your question about did it get spent where it was supposed to be spent?
It might. I'm not sure what their procedures are around it. That actually, because they'll present the single audit and the management letter at the next one, and that probably would be a really good question for them there. But as far as even then, so you all aren't getting the communication back in that even. So I think that it's determining that way.
So I think both Councilmember Hurt and Councilmember Toombs have heard this. Sometimes we'll get stuff and it's an emergency. There is no time to wait. It has got to be done, and it comes in on an emergency basis, or a resolution will be up and the question will be, well, we're not sure about this, can we defer it? It's like, no, this is an emergency, we have to do it. And then and then we never hear about it again. And I'm not saying that anybody is telling us anything that maybe everything is an emergency, I don't know. But I'm just trying to make sure that you look at this, and that's a lot of money that's coming in and out, and we pass it once, but we don't ever usually hear about it again. So I don't know, maybe it's something I can talk to you about at some point. It's just like, it'd be nice to know that what we're doing on a regular basis is actually, because a lot of it is designed to assist direct services to people, to help people to do certain things, and you'd like to go, okay, we did this, and then we followed up, and yeah, it got to where it was supposed to, and it really did help where it was supposed to. Okay.
Do we, I'm looking at the audit of the Sports Authority that's in progress, and wondering if we audit the Music City Center and the airport.
We are not, airport is outside of our scope. The Music City Center we would have to work on the scope of the audit, because they are a component unit that we have partial authority to audit. I can't give you specifics right now because I'm not completely sure of what we can audit of theirs, since they are not a full Metro entity. But that is something that technically we consider part of our audit scope.
But Community Foundation isn't a Metro entity.
That's correct. That one was a special situation where they actually are allowing us to audit them, where technically we normally would not go out and audit an MOU, but since that was asked for and the Community Foundation decided not to go through litigation, because it would have gone through litigation if they had denied us access, so they have opened their books to us.
So could we make the same request for the airport and the convention center?
The airport, I think there was a legal opinion on that one, if I'm correct, about, as I say, it was...
We went through an exercise for some reason, and something was agreed to. When Mark was here, I don't know why we did that, but there was some understanding and agreement in place, and I don't know how far it went from part of our bylaws or not. But
as I said, there's a specific code or something that says what we actually have within our authority, and I want to say that the interpretation by legal that we got, but I can look into that to see exactly what it was.
That question was asked before, and it was pretty extensive.
Because we also can't do Nashville Electric Service, it's certain component units such as that, but we can go back and revisit that and follow back up as far as what we do have authority.
Well, the reason why I was asking is because of, in light of the bills that the state has with the potentiality of taking over, for lack of a better word, our sports authority and defunding the convention center. And if we had audits that proved that they were operating well, and processes in place that substantiated them being in a good space, because I can't see why the state would want to come in and take over. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I'm just wondering if we were able to build some type of defense, maybe, to mitigate what may be coming. I'm not sure what the administration is doing. I'm hearing things, but I'd rather see some aggressive action towards this, because it's very concerning to me and to many of our constituents. So, and I was just wondering what we had already in place that could help us, address the situation.
can look into that, and I will follow back up with you. And at the next meeting, as well as follow up with Vice Mayor Schulman about his, what we can do is we can go back and take those into consideration and come up with a game plan on them. And at the next meeting, if y'all would like to amend or change the audit plan in order to add those or do something like that, that may be the better plan, because if we put them on right now, I'm not sure how much authority we have to audit it.
Yeah, I think the charter that we're under is kind of vague. So I think we try to take, as the money flows, that approach. But there was a lot of that, as we were growing up, so to speak, on what we had the authority to do or not. And I just can't recall that. But it was a lot of effort put into it on a lot of sides. So, and as Lauren said, this is something we approve or change it, and we can come back and throughout the year change it at any time. But either accept. Do I have a motion to accept the what?
No, another question.
Okay.
Just going back to what Councilmember Hurt was saying, because I understand what you're asking for. You may want to go back and look at the last time we did whatever reviews we did, either on the Sports Authority or the it would be the Convention Authority, at least part of it. And maybe you can get those to Councilmember Hurt so she can just at least look and see the last time we did it, were there things in place, were there any things that were of concern, that type of thing. Because obviously the legislation that we've got that's pending up at the state legislature, by the time we did our full review, it would probably already be passed if that's what they're going to do. So you may want to pull the last times we did any of that stuff and just get them to.
And also, I don't know how this works, but I know that when it comes to the federal government, the state says that they have state rights in order to protect them from the federal government coming in and, telling them what to do. And but yet, the city doesn't have city rights from the state coming in telling us what to do. I don't know how that plays out, and I'm just asking, where do we have the autonomy to and authorization? I mean, does our charter speak to that in some way? Because it's like if the state can stop the federal government from interfering, but yet then they are interfering in what we do on a local level, that seems hypocritical to me, or hypocrisy at its best. But I also think that we should have something to, some protective measures as a municipality. Do we?
That I do not know. That may be actually more in Nikki's realm.
That is a really nuanced issue and question, and really beyond the scope of today's meeting for me to be able to go into. I really can't make any general comment on that issue right now. I mean, there's a Tennessee Constitution that has certain provisions, and then there's that gives certain authorities, and to the state and to certain entities. So that's all I can really say. I mean, it's a really.
So it's nothing hard-clad? I mean, is it, like you interpret the Bible, you interpret it the way you want to and use it for what you need it to, or is it anything hard-clad that helps protect municipalities?
Municipalities do so much. They do different things, and there are different provisions that govern what, so it's kind of a nuanced issue as to what the particular issue may be, and whether that's addressed in the Constitution and the scope of authority of the state, Supreme Court interpretations, Tennessee, so it's. That said, I really can't make a general argument that, I really can't say much more than that. just make a general statement that's equivalent to the state and federal situation of state rights and federal rights, state rights. It's not, let me just leave it at that.
Councilmember, I know that she's answering the question correctly right now.
So vaguely.
So it's the whole issue. I mean, if you have a specific question about audit stuff, that might be, but your question's getting into something bigger, and I think it's probably fair to say that Metro Legal overall is looking at all the different things that are applying in this case. And I would probably direct you, because lots of council members are asking sort of the similar things, probably direct you to the director of Metro Legal for you to have a specific talk.
So would it be appropriate for Metro Legal to just send something out to the council members to say, so council members will be able to communicate with the constituents that, we know that this is of concern and people are, asking questions and something is being done, or do we just sit back and...
So, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll let you answer. I mean, the only thing I can really say is that Metro Legal is reviewing what's going on at the state level and what's pending. I believe our director, Wally Dietz, has issued some statements on some pending bills, but that's, but Metro Legal is reviewing everything, and that's that.
So as lawyers, and you've got several around the table, when you're reviewing an issue like this with something pending that may end up in litigation, you typically don't start, you can say a little bit, but you typically don't say a lot, because you're reviewing and you're analyzing what the statutes say, and you're trying to get your arguments in place. So you don't necessarily disclose your hand at this point. You basically say a little bit, which is what the legal director has done by that short memo that we got. But that's about all they're probably going to say at this point.
It's too early. Without an actual bill that's passed, you don't know what you're arguing against. So as Vice Mayor said, you don't show your hand as to what you're thinking, because you may push people a certain way if they see that you're arguing a certain thing. And so, I can understand Mr. K's position here, and definitely not wanting to speak on behalf of the city of Nashville. That's what the director of law does. So at this point, it's too early. We don't know. There's a lot of speculation, but we don't know what we're dealing with exactly, because nothing has passed yet.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Chair.
Anything relating to the again, any conversation is good. I just think anything relating to the work plan that we need to change at this time, and if not, do I have a motion to approve? Any other discussion on the work plan? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, guys.
Next, we just have recommendation implementation. We had 71 open before this meeting, and then we had 60 afterwards. So we had 11 that were closed. 3 of them requested revised dates. The revised dates were due to one is an application process that's still ongoing with training and finance, and then the other 2 are software related. My face.
I don't understand why I'm always on here every time.
So that's our recommendation implementation. Next, our ongoing project status. We have 13 projects that are currently ongoing. 6 of them are in the draft reporting phase. 4 of them are very close to being issued. We thought they might go out before this meeting, but they did not. We haven't had any calls to our hotline yet, but technically the audit plan year just started, so it hasn't been that long. So that's our ongoing projects. The next piece, if there's not any questions questions about that. Our next piece is this annual report. Every year we put out an annual report that we send out to council. It is just kind of a highlight of our accomplishments for the year and where we did as far as our metrics. We exceeded all of our goals with the exception of our audit projects completed. Admittedly, we would have hit this one if some of our audits that are right on the cusp of being issued have been sent out, but we're very close to that. It's going to go up and down throughout the year, or from year to year, as far as whether or not we're going to hit the goal. But we're proud of the fact that we did get out so many great audits this year and hope to do more next year. And so that annual report will be sent out to.
This is better.
I'm trying to see who took this picture.
It's a clip
Well, at least I've got a face.
I love it.
It's the same one from last
I
year.
know, that's on.
I want it on my business cards. I want it everywhere. I love
Could
it.
you put a little grayer on this? And how come, I don't understand how come Councilmember Hart and Councilmember Toombs don't get pictures?
Yeah.
Well, because
I would be slighted if I were you guys.
We are a building, aren't we?
yeah, I was going to say you're representing the Metro
We
Council.
didn't have anybody with an afro that
But just put them in the columns. They can be peeking out behind
Well,
the
I
building.
try to put who you represent. So they're representing the Metro Council, which is why the building, and then as well as Mr. Reed and Mr. Bates are representing the general public, their appointments, and so that's why there's a large population of people.
At least you have a face.
That's what I said.
It's the only face on the page.
Is there no way of giving Director Flannery a face?
I don't want it. I want to get hair to you.
It was a clip art picture that I thought it's not a calculator like last year.
Don't you appreciate it when everybody looks at the graphics and that's the subject?
If that's what we're talking about, I'm okay with
What's
us
actually
talking
in
about
this?
this.
What is this?
But that's the highlights of our accomplishment. We'll send that out to council after this meeting.
I know we've done this for a long time.
Yes.
A long time. You ever get any feedback?
No. It used to be like a 16-page
Yeah, I
book.
know.
And so I've kind of shortened it down and tried to make it easier and better for our website, since we're trying to make things more digital and so people can see it online, which is why it's kind of gotten cut down. But no, not really any feedback.
Well, that's important, so I'm glad you do it. You never know, somebody may pull it out.
Exactly. And we like the opportunity to brag on ourselves because we have a great staff that's worked very hard this year. And so it's great to be able to put it in something like that so that everybody can see the work they do.
Well, and again, page 3 where you have the implementation status. That's relatively new. That's probably within the last 4 or 5 years that we started going back and making that part of the audit process to track them
Yep.
and follow up.
And that's continued to,
That's where
Doing more
that's where you
of-
really get,
and as we've done more of our audit follow-ups, that's really helped to make sure that actually the implementation is there. So that's our annual report. We're still on budget for FY 2023. The only change that we have, I was going to let you all know that we currently have 10 FTEs, but next Tuesday will be Jessica Henderson in our office's last day. She was an auditor one that we hired about a year and a half ago. We hired her knowing her husband was in the military, and he will be going to flight training in Alabama, so she will be going with him. But we're very lucky to have her. There's a reason we hired her, because she interviewed so well. So we're very thankful for the work she did, but unfortunately she's moving with her husband so he can go to flight training.
Tell her thank you.
Yes. And so we will have 3 open vacant positions. We did post an Auditor 2 position just to get a feel of what the market was like. We unfortunately have had it open 3 weeks as of today, and we've not gotten great response to it. So we're trying to figure out better ways to advertise our positions, lower level, exploring internships. Maybe that would be a better way to get auditors into our departments for hiring. So
Maybe have them watch these meetings.
exactly. Maybe that's why we don't have them.
Maybe they are watching.
I think it could be, if they're looking at the report and they're seeing that the Director
does Metro have any sort of a referral
I don't think so.
system?
Where we would
A
get
referral
bonuses.
bonus right there.
No.
Well, I mean, I just ask. I mean, I'm not an HR person, but I would imagine where any company gets most of their new employees is from existing employees, friends and things like that. That, if you like working there, then I would like to work in there.
Like using headhunters?
No.
Okay.
This is just a friend's referral.
Oh, gotcha.
An employee referral.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I found someone that Lauren hired, I get $500.
Yep.
I just created my own program.
Yeah, well, I started it as a hat or something, but then it moved into money real fast. Anyway,
My building, I get $500
it's
if
very.
I lease.
Anyway, any other items?
Market is really tight right now.
Yes.
Market's tight everywhere.
We are not the only Metro department that's having trouble.
3% unemployment.
The only other thing that I was going to point out is on the original list of dates that we looked at last time, the next meeting was supposed to be April 11th. Finance has requested that we move it up to March 28th so that the external auditors can present the single audit and management letter earlier.
It's going to be difficult. We have some other meetings and dates.
28th is 11th.
Okay.
28.
Well, they were the ones who threw that at
Yeah,
So-
they don't know. Scheduled for other meetings.
Okay, so the date is still a little bit up in the air, but so the one on April 11th may change, may not change, but I will let you all know with notice so that make sure we have one.
Anything else?
Thanks, Nikki. This is her last meeting.
Yes, thank you.
What happened?
She didn't answer Councilmember Hurt's question. So we
We
just
had
happened.
some employee changes. Some people left, and they had to shuffle things around again.
Notice where she sits. She lasted longer than I thought.
But Terry's coming
So
back.
Terry's
Terry's coming
coming
back.
back.
Terry's coming
Terry's
back.
coming back?
Yeah, because
Can we vote on that?
We're still in a public meeting.
Oh, I didn't say that then.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. We're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.